Mr. Lewis, thank you so much, sir, for having us. Congratulations, first of all, on what you have been able to accomplish. Tell me, how do you feel about the cause that you have been able to champion?
Well, first off, it's important from my perspective, that initiative, that advocacy, was me representing the Caribbean Association of National Olympic Committees and the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee as a leader. So I saw it as my duty, responsibility to shine a light on what is and has been for a very long time a historical issue of racial injustice, and it's something that needed to be addressed. Why it hadn't been addressed for 50 years, we can all speculate in terms of the reality of the complexity of the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic movement's ecosystems across multiple stakeholders.
Now, some may ask the question, why? The issue in particular, the event in particular, had nothing to do with Trinidad and Tobago or even Caribbean sport. Why? Why did Brian Lewis take on this fight?
Because it's an issue that reflects institutional racism and systemic racism, and that impacts all of us, especially black, brown, and minorities, whether they be athletes and other stakeholders. So this is the challenge we face, especially in the Caribbean as a people, that if we believe something does not impact us, it's not seen as something important. And if it is something that can cause discomfort and uncomfortableness, whether in the conversations, whether because it may expose you to some kind of being ostracized or being criticized and condemned, we break from doing it. And something as significant as racism and sexism is very important, and it is something that everybody may have the different interpretation of it and how it impacts them. But in the context of the fact that these two black American athletes had their Olympic careers destroyed and were banned for life in a period of time when they didn't have the Court of Arbitration of Sport, was manifestly unfair, unjust, racist, because it was also led by the then IOC President Avery Brundage, who many consider racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic.
We all know, we all seen the picture of these men on the podium. How devastating what happened, do you think, to them affected their lives and what they could have had in life?
Well, you have to recall too, it has to be put in a context of the times and the time at which it took place. The civil rights movement in the States, you'd have had in 1968 Tommy Smith and John Carlos and Peter Norman, and it was a time of when a lot was being done, particularly by black people, to address systemic and institutionalized racism and racist systems, rules, and procedures that was in place at the time. So they have to, Vince Matthews and Wayne Collett's protest, for want of a better word, must be seen in the context of the time. And they didn't only take an action for themselves, but they took it for all people who have been oppressed, and in particular black people and brown people around the world of sport at the time and the Olympic movement.
You know, do you see sport having a role for advocacy for struggles that persons may go through or are currently going through?
Well, there are many people who believe and hold fast to the colonialist, European-dominated perspective that athletes should be seen and not heard, and that athletes should focus on playing, and there is that feeling the same way as it relates to sports administrators and sport leaders, in particular those who come from the global south, as it's called, in particular Africa and the Caribbean, that we must accept and tolerate the fact that in the global sport movement and the global Olympic movement, racism and other forms of discrimination, be it on the basis of gender, disability, etc., is in fact perpetrated, one would even say enabled, because of the systemic and institutional issues. And a lot of times people don't want to rock the boat because it is very easy to find your own comfort level in a system. Remember, those who benefit from a system wouldn't want to change it. And the reality is that there are many people, black, brown, colored, male, female, minorities, who end up benefiting from the system and they get comfortable. And therefore they lose sight of the fact that there's always a bigger picture that you must look at. You know, you can't be situational and transactional and performative when it comes to the issue of, in this particular case, racial injustices and racial discrimination. Sport can't operate in a vacuum. And as Rachel Den Hollander said, chosen ignorance is the greatest form of cowardice.
You know, if you look at the condemnation some of the footballers would have faced in Qatar for you know, trying to raise awareness of certain things that they, we consider or what is known to be discriminatory. How do you feel about what they went through, not being able to fully highlight? Do you think it was stifling the causes that they were?
Well, that's that's a symptom of the deeper problem. The problem is systemic and institutional racism. It's there. Those who may not believe that they are racist, if you have come from a system that's over 4 centuries, and it's the way you've been socialized, there will be unconscious bias. And it wouldn't take much for any person who feel that they have the protection of a tribe and a group at a particular point in time to bring out that negative aspect of themselves.